What is up, everybody? Mr. Purse here. Welcome to Unit 2.4. We're talking more French Revolution outcomes. We've done a bunch with the French Revolution, the causes, and a bunch of things with the outcomes. We're going to look at the outcomes today in outside of France. So far, we've really focused on what happened in France. So the French Revolution happens as a result of those four causes that we discussed. And then we get into a couple different phases of the French Revolution. The first one, which was building up of individual rights, Declaration of the Rights of Man. And then the revolution turns radical, where we're chopping people's heads off who disagree with our revolution. And then we bring in this guy, Napoleon, who's supposed to restore order, but he goes out and conquers a bunch of places. And then he eventually is overthrown and kicked off to an island off of Africa. Today, this video is more about what happens outside of France. So how does the French Revolution and this big monumental event that is going on impact other regions? So I want to start today, and where we're going to start is a place called Haiti. And if you don't know where Haiti is in the Caribbean. It's its own country. It's in between Cuba, Jamaica, Puerto Rico. So right here in the Caribbean Sea, it shares an island with the Dominican Republic. So historically, the Dominican Republic was conquered by the Spanish, which is why people who are Dominican speak Spanish. And Haiti, during the Age of Exploration, was conquered by the French. So I'm going to use this term historical context. You're going to hear me use it repeatedly for the rest of the year because it is main part of the CRQ, the constructive response questions that we've been doing in class, where there's the three documents or the two documents and the three questions. So I'm going to keep using this term so you get really familiar with it. When you hear historical context, it just means causes. So here's the historical context of the Haitian Revolution. Number one, the Enlightenment is going on, right? If you remember the Enlightenment was caused by the scientific rev and absolute monarchies. And then the Enlightenment happens. And those Enlightenment ideas, the main place of the Enlightenment was France. And a colony of the French is Haiti. So you can imagine people are coming back and forth between France and Haiti and bringing Enlightenment ideas, talking about them, and things that are going on in France. So people in Haiti are going to be aware of these Enlightenment ideas to a certain degree. The other thing in terms of historical context is, like I said, it's a French colony. Unlike other French colonies at the time, this colony has a large population of slaves. It was a main slave colony for the French. Almost 80% of the people who lived in Haiti were enslaved by the French, and it was a horrifically awful treatment. It is horrible to the nth degree. We have people who lose their identity from West Africa, who don't have the same last name, have taken on slave owners' last name. There is brutal psychological and physical abuse of slaves in France or in Haiti, as well as just the day-to-day aspect of losing your identity, being split from your kids, and being split from family members. It really is just an awful system in Haiti, one of the worst places for enslaved people. So that's going on. So we have the Enlightenment, we have a horrible treatment of slaves, and then we also have the American and French Revolution. So this is all going on at the same time. And a lot of times historically, and as well as today, we see waves of movements happen. And the American Revolution and the French Revolution are all about rights and freedoms. And if you look at this place, enslaved people, it goes totally against the Enlightenment. It is not life, liberty, and property. You are treated subhuman. So eventually what happens is this man right here, his name is Toussaint Louverture. He was born enslaved in Haiti. He is the son of a West African prince. I think a lot of times people have this vision of people who were enslaved as people who were maybe uneducated, maybe they were just farmers, but there are people who are going to be enslaved during the period of exploration who are going to be very famous, wealthy people, important political figures. And this guy's dad, his father was a West African prince. So as he's raised in Haiti, he is taught some things that other people might not have been taught as a result of his dad being well educated and a prince in West Africa. So he is going to emerge as the leader of the Haitian Revolution. He is our individual who's going to lead it. And essentially what happens is he helps unite local plantations and helps bring people who were otherwise would have been terrified to revolt, and he gathers up arms and they start fighting back against the slave owners who are French. And it is successful, which is wild historically, because this is the only successful slave revolt in history. So there have been it was the first successful slave revolt and the only successful slave revolt in history. Generally, slaves had a very hard time rebelling. And if they did try and rebel, the threats and the punishments were so severe that it often terrified people to rise up against this slave system. Also, it is the first Haiti becomes the first democracy in the world to totally outlaw slavery. So Haiti really becomes this this blueprint for a lot of other people. And although this other slaves are not as successful, it does show that to a lot of people who were in France who thought, oh, slaves are happy to be enslaved. This goes against that and contradicts it, that people who were enslaved were not happy to be slaves. And there was a myth in France and around the world that slaves were happy to be slaves, which is wild to think of today, but it was what some people thought. There's another revolution that happened. So we have Haiti right here. I'm pointing to it like you know what I'm talking about. Haiti right here. And then we also have another revolution and another wave of revolution. And this happens in South America. So we have the Haitian Revolution going on, and a decade and a half after the Haitian Revolution, the South American Revolution happens. Same thing, causes, historical context. They're almost identical to the other one. There's nothing crazy here. I'm not trying to fool you. There's Enlightenment. Enlightenment spreads from France. It's going to come into Spain, and Spain's going to bring it over into the Americas. And it's just south of the 13 colonies. So that we have all people talking about this stuff. Also, similar to the French Revolution, we have unequal social classes. The social class structure in Spanish Latin America, when I say Spanish Latin America, Spain took over all of this area in South America. Now, if you're never sure what country had colonized or taken over a region in the Americas, especially, always just think what language they speak. So, for example, Brazil speaks Portuguese. Brazil was a Portuguese colony. The countries that are now Colombia, Venezuela, Ecuador, Chile, Argentina, those countries today speak Spanish. They were Spanish colonies. Same thing with Mexico, Ecuador. Mexico, I already said Ecuador, Guatemala, El Salvador, Costa Rica. They are Spanish colonies. The system in Spanish Latin America, which again is all this area going into Central America, had a system, and hopefully you learned this last year, was a race-based system, meaning the more pure Spanish you were, the higher up you are on the social class. So the top of the group were called peninsulares. They are people who are born in Spain and then migrated to the Americas. If you have more African ancestry, so let's say your mom was a peninsulare and your dad is of African descent, and they married and had a kid, and you are that child, you are kind of in this middle class down here that you are of quote unquote mixed ancestry. They also have a group. If you were born in Spain, this is where we get a little confusing. So top people born in Spain, full-blooded Spanish. Next on the list are people who are born in the Americas, full-blooded Spanish. And then we have people of mixed ancestry. And then at the bottom are people who are full native ancestry, Native American ancestry, or people of African descent. It's an unequal social class. People don't like being treated unequally. Same thing we see in France, where you're taxed differently, you have better rights, different thing, and it goes against the Enlightenment because the Enlightenment is about equality. And if you connect equality and unequalness, it doesn't work out because it's just not good. Also, last piece of this is Napoleon's brother. Napoleon takes over Europe. One place he takes over is Spain. So the Spanish king, who has been in charge of Spanish Latin America, his ancestors have been in charge for a long time. Now you have Napoleon's brother in charge, and he's a French guy. And people are like, I don't want this French dude running my country. I'm not loyal to him, so maybe now is the time to rise up. So these three things, Enlightenment, unequal social classes, and essentially weak leaders, sound familiar, ends up being what leads to this South American Revolution. So the people in South America, led by this middle-class group who has limited rights, the Creoles, rise up and overthrow the Spanish, and it's led by this guy, Simón Bolívar. This dude is so famous. He has a country named after him today. If you don't know the country, it's called Bolivia. And if you ever go to South America, you will see Simón Bolívar's picture and statues everywhere in many city or urban areas. He's a super famous person. He's like the George Washington of the South American revolutions. Huge hero. He tries to end slavery. He's known as the liberator. He is a Creole general. He is like super famous. He leads the revolution. It is successful. He does a good job. They kick out the Spanish, and now the people who are consider themselves American now have control of South America. And his goal was to unite all these people together. So he's going to try and unite all of this region together as one country. He envisioned it to be like the United States, where each would be its own state. So Chile, Argentina, Bolivia, Peru, Ecuador, they'd all be their own state, but united under one government. It doesn't work, though. He ends up and he dies thinking he's a total failure. So even though he kicks out the British, it's going to lead to these separations where today someone who is Venezuelan and someone who is Colombian might not like each other, or Ecuadorian and Venezuelan. And we see these differences as a result of geography break up this area that was supposed to be unified into different countries, which leads to increased nationalism, which we'll get to in the next video, and people not liking each other. One side note to this, and if you ever go to South America, racial discrimination still exists in Central and South America, where generally the more Spanish blood you have in you, or the lighter your skin, historically you've been treated better and you probably have more money, and it's harder to rise up the more native ancestry you have. So this racial discrimination continues even after independence, and it's still, there's evidence of that still today in South America. So we have two revolutions that happened as a result of the French, the Haitian, South American revolutions. A lot of stuff going on with the French Revolution. We got one more thing on the French Revolution, one more outcome. That's how important it is. A lot of stuff going on. If you got any questions, you write it down. You let me know. I'm out.